Tonight's meal, tilapia surprise with boiled cabbage. Begin cooking steps 1 through 50 now.
Are you kidding me? Making dinner shouldn't feel like doing a 1,000-piece puzzle. With Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals, the hard part's already done. Pre-chopped ingredients, zero stress. Just assemble, bake, and enjoy. No complicated steps, no mountain of dishes. Try Assemble and Bake today. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Hey Wayne, how's it going?
I'm very good, Ed. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm glad the heat wave has cooled down. The 2-day heat wave. Everyone melted for 2 days and now we've gone back to normal summertime British weather.
Yeah, I was one of those who bought a fan. Well, I did have a fan anyway. I didn't just go and get one. I had a fan, but it's been in storage because we haven't had heat for so long that it had a massive accumulation of dust on it, and I was like, I'm not even dealing with that. So I went in, got a fan. I didn't really use it in the end because, you know, when you put on a fan and it gets hot anyway, do you know what I mean? The fan itself gets hot, and I thought, I'm not even dealing with that inferno problem.
Anyway, the football's been pretty good for pre-season. It's always one of those ones where you don't want to draw too many conclusions. I did see some analysis that said the correlation, the R squared rate was 0.12, like as in almost no correlation at all between pre-season results and the first 10 games of the actual season. So let's not get too excited. But, you know, ignore everything before the but. But actually, there's been quite a few things to get excited about, hasn't there?
Yeah, come on. Nothing is ever definite yeah, you know, we are drawing our path in life. Do you know, like everything's meant to be unpredictable, right? So don't conclude that everything's going to be good moving forward. But the reverse is very much true in terms of if you have a bad pre-season, you're pretty much going to have a really poor start to the season. That is pretty much nailed on. Now, the conclusion that you can draw from that is we've given ourselves the best possible chance, really. That's kind of why I was hoping that they wouldn't play the game in Perth with the sodden pitch, you know, even though those fans have waited a long time and they wanted. I could understand why they were going to play it, but I kind of wish that they hadn't because of the potential that we were giving ourselves for injury and and stuff like that. But
Ten Hag made a lot of changes in the second half, didn't he? And for a 5th game of pre-season, 5th or 4th game of pre-season, he made 11 changes, which is probably more than he might have wanted to. But I imagine it's because of just trying to avoid those injuries.
Look, like I said, I think it's been a good pre-season. So, yeah, you can't guarantee that it's going to be good moving forward. But, I mean, can you remember Mourinho had a horrible pre-season, which was right before the collapse? Yeah. Moyes' pre-season was absolutely dreadful for a multitude of reasons. Yeah. I know people are they're gonna complain about the dragging heels aspect of some of the transfers, but I think in that respect, considering that we've got a lot of new people in different roles, I think that it's, you know, they seem to be backing the manager. It seems to be very much what he's driving. It's the horrible catch-22 for someone like you and I in this position. People listen to us talk about United, so people want us to sort of give some kind of analysis on where the new people are going. Now, the problem that I always find is that I like to give people the benefit of the doubt right at the start, even though we've seen a lot of these, you know, like obviously a couple of the people who have been moved around into different roles, they've been at the club for a long time, but they're still in new positions. People will say you can't give them the benefit of the doubt because a lot needs to change, and a lot needs to change very quickly. It does, but you can't see the results of that in 6 or 7 weeks. You've got to give it a longer chance to succeed. And it's the same as last season when... At the back end of last season, when, as I said, previous to last season, when all the protests were happening, and the Glazers came out and they sort of, for the first time, embraced communication or whatever, I made the idiotic public stand of saying, well, give them a chance, because it's the first time they've done it, so give them a chance. And obviously, we saw that they didn't fulfill on a lot of stuff. But I still feel like, all right, you gave them the chance, and now we know they're not really to be trusted. The owners...
Yep.
The people working under the owners, you've got to give them a chance because they've got to make the best of what they've got. And so far, it's been geared towards what the manager wants, which is really
Yes.
all that we as supporters can ask for. So, yeah, in terms of that, I think you don't know. I mean, I know that we're going to get into the details of the pre-season, but the overall picture so far, I think, is pretty healthy. And, you know, if the results had gone badly and if the performances had gone badly and if it looked like the players weren't going to respond to the instructions, you know, I'm already more positive than I was at any point under Rangnick. And so he came in playing, you know, he was implementing a new philosophy and a new strategy and all that sort of stuff. So, and he was being very honest and straightforward and everything like that. Well, all the things that supporters think that they want to hear. But yeah, I'm quietly optimistic.
Okay.
Well, you can't be quietly. Unfortunately, you've got to be loudly about it. But I'm being more optimistic than pessimistic because of the way that it's gone so far.
It's the wonderful thing about having a public platform, isn't it? You get to make an idiot of yourself every week by making proclamations about something that's almost certainly wrong the next week. So welcome to doing podcasting or writing or anything like that. So anyway, maybe we can structure the conversation around like highlights and lowlights from the game so far, new players, because we can talk about some of them, some who have played. Well, Malacia has played, and there aren't any other new ones. Maybe some of the kids, and then on to transfers and Ten Hag himself.
Yeah.
And so, like, highlights, for me, the highlight of the past 4 games has been Anthony Martial, Jadon Sancho, and Marcus Rashford working together up front. And they've not played every minute of every game together, obviously, but just the moments. And Marcus Rashford looking fitter and more confident than at any point in the last 18 months, 2 years maybe. Jadon Sancho looking like a really high quality player, you know, floating anywhere in the front three, and Anthony Martial. I mean, I have to say, I think I probably said it talking about making a fool of yourself on the public platform. Probably said it more than once that the club really needs to get rid, that his time was up, and not for lack of quality, but for lack of consistent application over the last 6 years. But he's been great pre-season. So caveat there. But what have your highlights been?
Those, I think Fernandes looks like the weight's been lifted off him in much the same way as it has been Rashford. And obviously we can apply some of that to Ronaldo, but you know, he goes further back. For both of those players, it goes further back, especially for Rashford, because he was carrying, they said 18 months, 2 years, he's been carrying knocks and loss of confidence and everything like that. The kids coming in, I think, have done very well. I like Malacia. I think he's very progressive. I like the way that he's got the team set up in the way that the fullbacks are pressing iron, the way that the wingers are playing. Yeah, I really do like Sancho. I think he's come on. It's funny that we signed him as a right winger, and then because of Greenwood's form and the idea of like Ronaldo coming in and nobody knowing where all these players were going to fit. And now we don't have that problem because Greenwood's not there. Obviously, Cavani's gone. Ronaldo's Ronaldo is doing what Ronaldo is doing. Keep him fit.
Get on to him.
Yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm in much the same boat as everything that you've just said there. The thing with Martial, we know that he's got the talent. It's not about whether he can do it in pre-season. It's about whether or not he can do a consistent run of form, whether or not he's not going to disappear.
Which he really never has. Yeah.
Exactly. And whether he'll be present and standing up. Now, the thing that you've got with Martial, which to say I think the horse has bolted, and I don't want to be negative because I'm definitely willing to give him another chance because he's got a lot of talent and I think he has suffered with the managers. I know that Mourinho obviously the worst thing that happened to Martial was Sanchez coming in because obviously Rashford and Martial were playing great off it. They were having this really good rivalry, and then Sanchez came in and it derailed everything for a long period of time.
It really did, yeah.
And I think people forget how. I mean, I know it even goes back further than that when Zlatan came in and took the shirt and everything. You know, so it's been a long time for Martial. Now, the problem is you're talking about a 4-year period there, and you can't invest 4 years. It's the same Pogba principle, really. Like, if we'd had invested another 3-year contract, you're basically investing, asking for the last 3 years to be repeated. And that's kind of like what you're thinking with Martial. But the thing what we've got with Martial that we haven't had with the other players is that he's had a reality check. He's gone to Sevilla. Nobody else wanted him but Sevilla. He didn't do well there. They were criticising him for the same things that he gets criticised for in Manchester. So he can't have any hiding place with that. He's seen where Lingard's gone. He's gone to Nottingham Forest. He's seen where Pogba's gone. And I know Pogba went back, but he only went back to Juventus because they were familiar with him. And he's had to take a bit of a humility check with that one because obviously Real are looking to move forward and they didn't want to invest in him. Paris were looking to move forward and they couldn't see Pogba as the gamble, even on a free transfer. So, and I'm not digging on those players. What I'm saying is going into Martial moving forward.
No, it's a step down.
Exactly. Yeah. He knows now this is his last chance, and it's not the club that he can't just look at United and blame United because those players weren't wanted by bigger clubs. They've gone and they've had to take step downs. So Martial knows, and he definitely knows because of what happened to him at Sevilla, that he really does need to step up.
And Ten Hag said it. He said it he said it's up to him. He said I like him, but it's up to him.
But let me finish because I'm aware that I'm being too negative on him there. I do like the way that he's looked in pre-season. He does have a really good link up with Rashford, which I think that because they would often only one of them were playing, you don't get to see that link up very often. So seeing it in pre-season and then seeing how good Sancho's been with them, it even looks, and maybe it's because he's a shiny new toy, Sancho looks like he might even be the dominant one in that front three, which says a lot because he's obviously a little bit younger and newer to the setup. But he looks like he's got the confidence to step in and be like, right, I'm going to be the number one in this front three, which I think is really, really positive because that will encourage the other two to step up. Like you said, Rashford looks liberated. He's just, even off the ball, the way that he moves and the way that he carries himself, it does literally look like he looks like he's lost. And I know that he hasn't because he's a muscular, lean guy anyway, but it looks like he's lost a stone and a half. Do you know, that's how freely he's moving. He looks really good. The way that he's shooting, even though he hasn't really scored a lot, the way that he's shooting and striking, really confident. And obviously Martial getting into those areas. I am impressed with a lot of it. Even the defence, I like the way that they're pushing up. I know that they're inherently going to have problems because of their natural ability. So the way that Ten Hag's looking to develop whatever combination he's trying to develop. He's got Maguire on the right, which is an obvious move that he's made. He obviously doesn't trust Tellez at full back because he's been playing at left centre back. We've got to wait and see what happens with Varane because Varane, you would think on quality, would be the natural person who's going to be complementing Martinez.
Just got to stay fit.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got all these questions to be asked. The defence is obviously going to be the bedrock on which Ten Hag builds the system. Then you've got the midfield. Everything, though, looks good. The football that they're playing is good. It's very proactive. They're pushing out the pitch. They're looking to, the biggest complaint that we had last season is sometimes it looked like United were down to 9 men. Honestly, in almost every game because they were nowhere near. And because and I know, you have this natural inclination to say they're not trying. They're not tackling, but it just looks like that because the confidence is shot, and footballer's not trying. And it's even when Neville was saying, look at them walking around against City and look at what they're doing against Liverpool. They don't want to be humiliated by them. And look, we spoke in the aftermath of a couple of those defeats that were very, very difficult, and the message probably from me was very different then to what it is now. Because I was very downbeat in response. Like, looking at it more objectively, with a little bit of distance, obviously they don't want to be embarrassed and humiliated by that. They don't want to be associated with the tag of the worst Manchester United team in a generation. They don't want that. Why would they want that? But so the point I'm making though is that they, under this manager, they do look confident and they are pressing in all the right areas. They don't look like they're down to 9 men. They look like they can outnumber in different areas. And
looks like a system.
Exactly. And I really hated having a go at Solskjaer for that because I felt it was still ineffective and we still play good football. And it was very much clear that it was a 4-2-3-1. We knew what system we were playing. It was just the way that those players understood the responsibilities, and I think that's where in his inexperience came in, and the fact they didn't get good coaches. He didn't get more modern coaches around him to convey those messages.
To help him out.
we don't need to go over the Solskjaer remake, but we'll just talk about the pronounced difference that we've seen under Ten Hag. And obviously Rangnick was meant to be this massively experienced coach, but he had exactly the same problems. Now that tells you that the players, there was a problem with the players, but there couldn't have been that big a problem because they still finished in the, if we're going to say it's a generous second the year before, at least they finished worthy of the top four, and they were a long way off that last season. So there's obviously a problem in there. Confidence and momentum plays a big part. I think that's a big thing that Ten Hag's got right.
Well, he's certainly got the momentum, hasn't he? So he's certainly building momentum, and you can really see the system. You see it both Luke Shaw, who's a player who's pretty progressive in his movement going forward, and Malacia, who's very interesting because he drifts inside quite a bit as well. It looks like a very Ajax style fullback, even if he came from came from PSV or Feyenoord. Sorry. So you can see the pronounced change already in the system, even this early, and that gives me confidence that everyone will move forward as a result. There are weaknesses, obviously. Ten Hag was very critical of the goals conceded against Villa, said it was unacceptable that they'd switched off, which is an interesting word for pre-season, I think. And obviously Dave did a Dave, and we know he's not going to be strong in the air, sadly. And he's not going to be strong in the air, and he's not strong with his feet, although it's very interesting how he is already playing short passes into fullback areas, so clearly instructed to do that. We'll see whether we have some problems there and he misplaces a pass or two. But I just think, in terms of pattern, very, very clear, 4-2-3-1, flexible going forward, pushing fullbacks really high, pushing the centre-backs, the high line, much higher than under Rangnick. It's risky football, it's progressive football, and certainly without the defensive midfield cover, which we don't have, and the link between defence and midfield and attack, which we don't have, which we can talk about, like some of the transfer targets coming up, that risk will be exposed, I think, at some point when we get into the Premier League. And then we'll see how much of Ten Hag's philosophy remains when results don't quite go his way, which of course inevitably will happen. United are not going to win the league in the season coming up. This is a season of progress, we hope. It can't be anything but progress, can it? We talked briefly about Van Gaal prior to recording, and Van Gaal was derailed by that result at Leicester, and he changed everything. And I feel like Ten Hag is strong enough that he's going to implement his philosophy, and we'll find out if he's strong enough to implement that philosophy despite the players. And that sounds really negative, but I actually think it's really positive. I'm hoping the manager he gets to decide, and it's not the players that get to decide, it's not the results that get to decide. And so I feel confident just that we've got that system. There is a pattern of football. We know how United are going to play, and now the thing after that really does become, and reductive as it sounds, does become, can we get the right players to play in that system? Either from finding younger players, which is hard to say that anyone's definitely going to break through, or from the transfer market. So, what are your thoughts on the younger players? Because quite a few of them have been on tour, and some of them have stood out a little bit.
In midfield, I've got to say, the thing is as well, they've come on together in every game. They've played together in every game, and they've played in the centre of midfield together in every game when they've played, and they've looked capable. And not only capable, held their own against good teams, like really good teams. Like obviously, all right, Liverpool had a much changed side, but they had the better players on when they came on, and they didn't look out of place. They looked good against Palace, obviously against the Australian side, and I don't think that they were too bad yesterday. I don't think I wouldn't have a go at them for saying that that's why the result slipped or anything. So I'm really, really impressed with them. Zidane's temperament is just unbelievable. I still have one or two reservations about Savage. I'm not sure if he's got the right quality at that level. But Zidane certainly.
We'll see. His passing is pretty good.
He could very well be, and you don't know until they've been given sort of 4 or 5 games in the first team to sort of actually have a look at him and see what they're about. He could very well be that underrated, kind of like Nicky Butt, passer and mover. Do you know what I mean? Just move the ball along and carry on with that, carry on with your game like that. And you do need a player like that in a team, so it could very well. I'm not saying he doesn't have the temperament for it. I'm looking at the comparison between the two, and I think maybe it's because Iqbal's got a trick or two more than Savage has, so it stands out a little bit more. And obviously you've got Hannibal, who showed his temperament at the end of last season. He showed that he's not overawed by the occasion, so you want to see him get a chance as well. But obviously that midfield area is so pivotal that I don't think that Ten Hag can afford to use those players in rotation.
I don't think he will.
Because of the fact that it's so significant. Yeah, I don't think he will either. But what I'm saying is, when I've looked at it and I've been more impressed by that, I still think that it's a ways off from like saying, all right, we can actually trust that into the first team. But certainly, I would say all the cup games, the Europa League games, give them minutes, give them many minutes to really, give them a fair shake. Don't just bring them on when it's like 3-0 against, I don't know, some team from Luxembourg.
Yeah.
I
don't quite expect the team from Luxembourg to be 3-0 up against United, but you never know.
Stranger things have happened.
No, I tell you what you mean. If you're going to give them minutes, give them proper minutes, and otherwise find a loan move, and it may well be that both Iqbal and Savage do get loans, because I can't see them getting too many minutes in the first team in the Premier League. I guess the one miss has been James Garner had an injury, disrupted pre-season. We would have seen more of him, but for that. He had a good season at Forest last season, but not a great season, and his numbers don't look like they'd translate to the Premier League, but that doesn't always say everything about a player, and players mature at different rates, don't they? So he had a season in which his sort of passing really improved at Forest, I'd say. But there's a hole there. There's a hole there for someone to link defence and midfield, or to be the destroyer, which isn't really him. Or both, in fact. Yeah. So there's an opportunity for him, for sure.
The fact that we've won the Youth Cup, there's historically 6 or 7 first team appearances will be made. Well, not 6 or 7 first team appearances. There'll be 6 or 7 of those players will get chances in the first team for however long. That's historically what the average is for those players getting in. You can't say exactly who or where because of it's injury or cup games, whenever that opportunity arises for them. So the unique thing about that is we've never had a manager take over when we've won the Youth Cup in the previous season. So he's walking into a fairly healthy situation for that, and it does look like a decent youth team. I mean, we can all remember the 2011 Youth Cup winning team and thinking a lot more would make that into the first team than what they did, and the ones that did make it.
Interesting journey for some of them, right? Pogba, Lingard, Ravel.
Yeah, exactly. But they still played. I mean, Pogba and Lingard still played like over 200 appearances for us. So you could call it a success in that regard. What I'm saying is, it's another situation that I'm not playing Glazonomics here. We definitely need significant signings in significant areas. What I am saying is that it is healthy for him to be able to call upon these players and to use them, and we shouldn't look on that as a bad thing, as long as it's supplemented by the right players. However, like you said, the key area in this team is going to be that hole in midfield, and you can't go into that with a rookie or what we've got and expect that we're going to really improve from where we were.
All right, well, that feels like a good segue into talking about the latest on the transfer situation. So Malacia's come in, talked about him a bit. Looks pretty good. I think he's going to challenge Luke Shaw, and Luke Shaw needs it based on last season's performances. And then Eriksen signed, and Martinez, and they're both two interesting signings, which you wouldn't necessarily have picked out beforehand. Eriksen, Ten Hag's been really clear, signed him to play midfield. He played a lot of last season at Brentford, sort of off the left in the front three. Looks like he might play as an 8 at United, or at least part of the squad, and play some of those games, if not all of them. Interesting call. We haven't seen any of that, of course, because he's not been on pre-season, because he's signed quite late. But we've got 2 more games coming up, and presumably we're going to see him in those games. I probably wouldn't have picked Eriksen as an ideal, transformational signing for United, but someone who's coming into the squad, who really wanted to join United, who had other offers and could have gone elsewhere, and given his journey, it feels like a very positive signing at this stage in the progress. And he knows Ten Hag, or at least he knows the Ajax system.
No, yeah, I'm completely with you on that. Ericsson, for those reasons, is a key signing for Ten Hag because he's low risk in terms of like he's cost nothing.
Yeah.
He's so familiar with the thing, and we've had such a turnover of players that what he needs is that introduction of players who understand his way of doing things. So they're going to become the leaders de facto, really. So you're going to
Yep.
Martinez is going to become a leader in the back, and sort of what's expected of that back line. He's
Exactly.
going to be
What's expected in this system. Yeah.
and Eriksen's going to be the same in midfield as well. And I think it's right for him to be playing in that area. You don't want to. We've got a lot of pace and vibrancy in the front. Upon one player who may not be in it, but a lot of unpredictability in that front line, which is good to look at. There's no point in that. You're probably not always going to play with it. You're going to have more creative players behind in certain games and might have more compact formations and systems. Ericsson, it just seems like a very sensible signing all the way. I mean, he showed no adverse effects from what he went through. There's going to be a big connection to the crowd, and don't underestimate these things because look, there was a massive disconnection with the crowd last season. So if you get a player who everyone is taken to them, if even the thing that happened with Ericsson and Williams last season. When Williams, like the heartwarming thing where
I'm
going to get you and give him some aggro, and then he's like Ericsson, so he's like, oh, even that, like United fans were loving that, and that's nothing really to do with us at the time. And no, he was brilliant when he played for Spurs. He was always good against us. You can't doubt his class as a footballer. The one little thing that I can remember is that when he was forcing his way out of Spurs, it was because of like the astronomical money that he wanted, and United were being linked with him at the time when that's probably around the time that we'd signed Sanchez, and it was like, are we going to really make another mistake like this? Because it looked like we could have easily gone in for that kind of deal.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that we were linked with him there. Now, obviously things have changed a lot, and he's grateful to have this opportunity that clubs wouldn't take. There's definitely no doubt in his class. When he played for Brentford at Old Trafford, he was pretty much the best midfielder on the pitch there. So he can still do that. He's not going to be overawed by Old Trafford because he's dictated games at Old Trafford before in winning performances for Spurs.
Sure.
So
he's played for big clubs,
you've lost Mata, you've lost Pogba. You've lost Lingard, 3 players who operate in similar areas. And Eriksen is better than all of them. Not in terms of Mata is definitely an equal, but in terms of how he would fit into a United system, Mata was always a different kind of fit because he was both to play on the right wing at one point, both to play in the number 10 system when we had Rooney playing there. Even though Rooney wasn't in form, you weren't going to force him out of the team because of the contract that he was on. So Mata never seemed like a good fit. Eriksen's a perfect fit. There's an obvious vacation in this side for him. So, I'm 100% on board with this being a fantastic signing. Again, people might listen and say Glazonomics, but I think sometimes you take the sensible option when it's there, and it was there. And for everything, most importantly, Ten Hag implementing what he wants to do, I think Eriksen's a perfect signing for us.
Yeah, I think you're right. No, it's a no-lose. He could have gone back to Spurs, who are a better side right now, under Conte, a proven manager. Could have stayed at Brentford, where he had so much sort of love and success and been a big fish in a smaller pond, and he's chosen to come to United. So I think it's a positive all-round. And even though signing older players on big money, and he's on big-ish money, has not really worked for United in the past, over the past 9 years. It doesn't feel like that kind of shiny, big name, Ed Woodward style signing. So it gives me less sort of anxiety. It's positive all round. If he plays at number 8, it will be interesting because he's obviously got quality and he can definitely play there. And as long as like him and Fernandes are not in the same zone all the time. And so like how him, Fernandes and Donny van der Beek all kind of fit because they are quite similar players.
I think it actually strikes me, for anyone old enough to remember, it's more like an Arnold Muren kind of signing.
Then we come on to Martinez, he's such an interesting signing. I mean, look, I don't watch Eredivisie, but I've seen him in the Champions League, obviously, and bits of Argentina. I spoke to Elko Born a couple of weeks ago, friend of the pod, about that one. He was quite circumspect about it. He said, look, Ajax fans won't be that upset about him going, and everyone's going to think it's a great deal for the amount of money, which is interesting, isn't it, as a piece of analysis. But what's he going to bring to United? He's a great passer of the ball. Clearly, just from the numbers and watching him play, he's going to help United bring the ball out of defence and beat the press in a way that we can't right now. So, for all of Harry Maguire's qualities, and he leads the Premier League in terms of passes made into the final third. And I think a lot of that was the system, though. Him ending up at number 10 a lot of the time because of the mess of the system. But for all of Harry Maguire's qualities, United panicked when pressed so often. I think that's why Martinez has been bought, basically. He can play, he's left-footed, he's going to open up that side of the pitch for United, much more balanced in an attacking sense. His attacking numbers as a defender are great. He's going to pass the ball well, he's going to pass it into the right areas, he'll be involved in the build-up or the XG chain, and that's great qualities there. And he's a tenacious defender from what I've seen of him. He is 5'9", and I guess he can feel thankful that he's not going to be up against Martin Weghorst and Burnley lumping it long next season, because it'd be interesting to watch that. But I guess that's the thing everyone will be watching. Is he going to be caught out because he's a little guy at the back, which you just don't see very often?
Yeah, I mean, look, if we were up against Burnley, then you just put Maguire there. Do you know what I mean?
It's very true.
It's not like he's the only defender that we've got. I get it, the reservations. I'm fully on board with that, and I can understand why. The one thing that I have got a problem with is, first of all, that what you said about the Ajax. There's not really been a tremendous sadness that he's going, which concerns me a little bit. They seem quite happy for the amount of money. And I don't know if it's because of the track record that we've got. I know he's definitely better on the ball than Heinze and Rojo, for sure. He's better on the ball than either of those was. And this is more a reservation about Rojo than it is Heinze, because he wasn't as dangerous. I just remember the 2 years when Rojo played for us. He played longer for us, but it seemed 2 years when he was playing regularly. And I hated it, and not because I didn't like him as a player. Like, everyone likes a full-blooded, committed player. Sure. But you didn't know if he was going to hurt someone or hurt himself, and I don't like watching that. I don't know. It really did give me like a sense of anxiety watching it, because it wasn't pleasant to watch. It was like a separate part of the game when he went into it. He just, especially sometimes you get that with Bailly, but Bailly's not as reckless. He's kind of like the Robson trait, and I'm not comparing Bailly to Robson, but he went into things when you knew he would have hurt him.
Bailly's the new Robson.
But yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is he went into things when he probably shouldn't, because he's going to get hurt. Well, that's definitely what Robson used to do. He'd overcommit, and you just sort of knew sometimes he's going to get hurt. Rojo, there'd be things set up where they'd like a 50-50, and you knew that it was 30-70 against him, and he'd still go into it. And we saw him get injured a lot of times in those occasions, and I just don't like it. I mean, I'm not saying like I don't really have a massive empathy for all the teams that we're playing against, but I still don't like to see a United player going out deliberately to injure other people. I'm not saying that he definitely did that, but he went out with
Rojo's a mad bastard.
Yeah, he was reckless. I mean, anyone who can see the way that he makes toast can understand he has no regard for things that are considered normal. So this is the problem that I've got with the aggression side of it. Is that what we're going to see from him? Obviously, from the numbers and everything, the way that he's better on the ball, Martinez, I would presume not, because you would have a better understanding of the retention and the retrieval of a ball to know that you're not saying yourself. You know, Rojo wasn't good on the ball. Let's not make any bones about that. But Martinez is. So there's obviously more care in the way that he gets hold of the ball as well. So hopefully we're not going to see that. I don't know. It is a very curious one, probably the most curious of the signings, because of the fact that he's probably he's going to be nailed on to start in that defence. He should be for that amount of money. Yeah, I know that Varane's a World Cup winner and Maguire cost the most, but you don't make a statement signing like that in your defence if you're not intending to use him and change things up. So it will be interesting. I've seen, and I've got to give the shout, Paul Parker. Obviously, I do a lot of work with him, and he was shorter. He was shorter than Martin. Well, he still is shorter than Martinez. I don't think he's grown 4 inches in the years since he's retired.
Yes.
And he was an excellent centre back. So it's all about his timing. Everything's about timing, and yeah, it's like Ferdinand. Was Ferdinand a great tackler? We don't know because he never had to tackle because he was such a good interceptor. He was so good at reading the game. So you don't know what he's going to bring. Can it adapt to the English game? It's very, very intriguing. But yeah, the one definite thing you can say is he's good on the ball, and that's a very good fit for Ten Hag's system. And again, looking for optimism, aren't we? So that's
we
he's
are.
got to be the best signing since sliced toast.
The one missing so far is Frenkie de Jong. It's waiting for Barcelona to blink, I guess, and pay up the money and then see if de Jong really wants to come or not. It would be a very, very sad indictment on, well, I guess John Murta and the recruitment department if it turns out that after all this time we didn't know whether he was willing to join United or not. I'm hoping it's just about the details of the contract and the money he's owned and all of that. So.
Yeah. You can't be in a situation like that, especially this session, because Ten Hag will be talking to him. Those conversations will.
If United have got played in this situation, it's everyone needs to retire and start again.
Yeah, sack him, get on his back.
As a player, de Jong is really interesting. I was chatting to Paul, came over, former host Paul came over to the house last night, so I had a chat to him, and he pointed out, which I think is fair analysis, that he's basically had 1.5 good seasons in his career so far, and yeah, it might be on the harsh side of the analysis but there's some truth to it. I mean, I guess if United do capture this player, it's because we're buying X18, 19 de Jong and not Barcelona 21, 22 de Jong, and I feel sorry for him in a way because at Barcelona he couldn't play the system he played at Ajax because Busquets was there. Right? So what's Jong great at? He's great at getting the ball off the centre backs and driving forward. He's got a very good range of passing. Not the best ever, but a very good range of passing. And he carries the ball. He's in the high 90s in the percentile for carrying the ball in midfield. And he carries the ball into forward areas and gets the ball moving. And so he's not a number 6, even though that's how Ten Hag described him. He described him as a holding midfielder. But he's a very different form of holding player if he comes in to play that role. But at Barcelona last season he was pushed forward and it probably wasn't a role that suited him really. And so it seems to me that this move is one that would suit absolutely everybody. And the two hold-ups are Barcelona wanting to not pay him the money, I'm guessing, not knowing that he's owed, which is nearly 20 million euros, which would give most people pause for thought to try and sacrifice that much money. And then probably the player going, right, is this the right move for my career? He lives in a great city. It is a great city, Barcelona. He's at a great club, even if it's going through tough times. And there's not a lot of incentive for him to move. He's on a really mega contract. And so United have to go some way to convince him that the chaos of the past 9 years is not what's going to be the next few years of the peak years of his career.
Yeah, everything. I mean, you've summarised it perfectly. Obviously, he's in a situation where, because he's got that contract, because of the fact that Busquets is going to have to retire at some point, so he could move into that role. Because of the fact that he'd always wanted to play at Barcelona, there's a slight improvement happening. You've got a manager who could see de Jong as a future on the pitch. Do you know, there are all these things that he did want to play there. Well, you're not going to give up that without being absolutely forced out. Now, in the last pre-season game, he was played in the centre of defence, wasn't he? That's, he might be able to play there. So it seems like they're making all the noises to sort of like, come on, you've got to go kind of thing. But I can understand his position. First of all, it is a mega amount of money, even for someone who's like earning like 200 grand a week. It's still 100 times that amount. You're talking a lot of money. You're not going to walk away from 5 lottery wins for the sake of. I mean, when these rumours were starting early June, when it seemed like there were serious legs to them, 3 months is not a long time to wait for that money to come in. So someone's got to blink. Barcelona have got to make some kind of financial, unless they sell literally everything that has any value to the club just to keep older players in the short term, which you wouldn't put it past them. Now, he's not the instigator. He's not the pushing factor. He didn't want to move. He didn't ask to move. So if he doesn't have to move, then I don't think he would. I think the way that the move's been put to him, I think that he's accepted it in terms of like he'd be happy to everything that we've heard in terms of like this is pretty much a chess game. So if De Jong doesn't move, if he doesn't move, if they don't force him out, then he's got to still be popular with the Barcelona fans, which as someone who's dreamed of playing for Barcelona, he doesn't want to. We know what the Spanish fans
and
are
especially
like.
the local media.
They can turn on you very quickly and they can make you feel unwelcome. He doesn't want to be in that position. Yeah, especially the media around Barcelona and Real Madrid, it can be so intensive. So he doesn't want to be cast as the villain in that piece. He wants to wait for 20 to 30 million euros, and I don't blame him for that. If he has any reservations over coming to United, because he's got to definitely spend a year at least outside of the Champions League, I can understand that. Why would you? You've got to ask the question: is there going to be investment? It's all right saying that you're buying me. The other thing I want to say with this is that the fee is around 65 million pound. It's not going and buying the best midfielder in the world. It's buying pretty much like Martinez, like Eriksen, like Malacia. It's buying a player to fill a role in a position. Now the key with this is he's been identified by Ten Hag as the only player, which is kind of a good thing for his morale to sort of romanticise it, say bring him over. But it also says that he's the player with those qualities that he wants. You know, yes, he could coach another player into that, but he hasn't seen another player out there. He hasn't just gone for the big shiny midfielder who's the talk of the town. He's gone for a player very early on who he was familiar with. There's obviously been some kind of very initial conversation. I don't even know if it might have even been instigated by Barcelona, because this came out very, very early in the transfer window, this story. So it's very obvious that Barcelona have seen De Jong as the key player to move on to raise the biggest amount of money.
Or Gavi,
expendable in the way that Pedri isn't.
Yeah.
Do you know, or the other youngsters that they've got. Exactly. He's seen as the expendable one. So I think a large part of it has been driven from Barcelona from the start, and the fact that it's been a very direct link to United.
I think that's right. And I think it does fall into place for everyone. And Barcelona need to do it less for the absolute cash, although they need it, but to get the wages off the book at this point. I mean, they've sold their future for the next 25 years. They sold 25% of all future TV royalties, and a similar percentage, or is 50% of commercial royalties outside of the shirt sponsorship and kit deal. So they've mortgaged a really significant part of their future commercial revenue in order to get money now. It's a massive gamble. It's a gamble that they can start winning again and push even bigger commercial deals. As a result, if it fails, the club is absolutely screwed, because there is still, nearly you take the 350 million euros they've got €1 billion worth of debt still, restructured over a very long period of time. So it's still there. So they need the money in order to get it off the wage book, so that they can unlock their signings. Because who scored against Real Madrid last night, Robert Lewandowski, who played, will not be playing, and Andres Christensen, who started that game as well, will not be playing on the first game of La Liga unless they get money in. So I think it's in everyone's interest that this happens. I guess Barcelona hoping that United blink first and somehow agree to cover those wages. So we'll see with that one. Anyway, I guess we can't talk about transfers without talking about some potential outgoings, or one potential big outgoing. We briefly mentioned his name before, but Ronaldo posted a picture of himself in the gym during United's game against Aston Villa. I don't think that was an accident. This is a man who has a mega social media team. What's going on there? Yeah. I mean, is he trying to tell us he's fit and ready? Is he showing the world that he's fit and ready? It was unbelievable scenes, Jeff. Unbelievable scenes.
I know that you've been critical of him. You have that. You have an already held position.
Yeah.
I know that.
Hashtag agenda. Yeah, the agenda is strong. So.
No, not an agenda.
Well, I think
not
it
an
is.
agenda. In the same way that I think you're fair in everything. An agenda would suggest there's something unfair in there. I don't think that. But people will listen to the way that I because I've romanticised his comeback in a way that you've been a lot more objective about it, and you refused to sort of. I've gone right into the nostalgia because that's what I do. Right, I understand that. So, the tricky thing I have with this is that I don't want to make an assumption based on why he stayed behind, because we don't know the family reasons. There could have been a very fair family reason.
Yes, well, I've heard one story about it, which I guess I'm just not going to repeat here. But yeah, I mean, it seems like the family reason is fair enough, ish. Yeah, serious, but not one that could have stopped him playing. But anyway,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's one of those, and because he's been through a lot this year, he's definitely been through a lot. He might have wanted to stay behind. That's one thing. The other thing is that the timing of it all obviously threw the club into a bit of a tailspin, because all of their trip marketing, all of the kit marketing that was happening at right that time, like literally days after this all came out, everything was planned around Ronaldo. So the club they've really been to the point where they didn't release the promotional videos for the kit right as it came out. They were still
editing,
umming and ahhing whether or not to do it. Yeah, exactly. Before releasing it a few minutes after, they weren't releasing it all at the same time because they were still working out the kinks with it. And obviously, regardless of whether he does or not fit into Ten Hag's system or philosophy, he's still a key player, and he would have played and he would have been part of that, and that would have been the process that we would have been watching. It's the issue of, obviously, the timing of everything. If he does want to go, if that is genuine, if he does want to go, I can understand that. For the same reason I can understand that Jong doesn't want to sign, because let's face it, he can still score goals in the Champions League. He does have that legacy. He does want to play in there. He does want to compete and all that. All right, fair enough, he can do that. And I would have at that point said, move him on. Better blank slate. Let's all move forward. There's no point keeping him if he's unhappy. It's not the same as 2008. You're not keeping the best player in the world. You're keeping a player who, at best, you might get another 50 goals out of if he stays for 2 or 3 years. Is that worth sacrificing the long term stability of what? Even another investment in Martial, is that a better gamble at this point than the continued investment in Ronaldo? We don't know. It's a fair question to ask, is the point. I just have this thing where now, if again we're playing with ifs, because I'm not entirely sure how much he's been whoring himself around to all the different clubs, because it's very unbecoming of a player who's one of the greatest of all time. Has he really been saying, I'll play for you Chelsea, I'll play for you Bayern, I'll play for you Atletico Madrid? If that or hasn't been happening, the issue that he's got going back into United is whether or not he has been putting himself out there. All of the noises from those clubs have been, we're not taking that gamble. So his ego's been dented either way. So he's gonna a catch-22 for him coming back is gonna be, his ego has been dented to the point where he's gonna have to sort of say that he wants to stay at United, because the club have, as far as everyone knows, and all of the briefings have been consistent from the club, Ronaldo is not for sale. Now, I don't know if they're saying we want a £20 million bid for him, if that's what not for sale means in this instance. But perhaps the club have been protecting Ronaldo, and I don't know if maybe at some point in the last week something's got back to Ronaldo and he said, do you know what, I've actually done you a solid here, so you better start. Which all made sense until he posted the picture mid-match.
It's just unbelievable stuff. I tell you what I think has happened, and forgive me everyone for speculating. This is how I think the story is going. I'm just going to speculate because, hey, it's fun, isn't it?
Please do.
The family issue, and in that, it's something he has to deal with, but it's convenient because at the same time you mentioned whoring. His agent Mendes is out around Europe, pushing him to absolutely everyone. Whoring, he's less for leaving Las Vegas at that point. But all sides have left it open, and United especially, to him returning, and the story being family thing, he was always going to come back. The rest of it was all nonsense, fake news, etc. and so on. So it's been in everyone's interest to leave it open enough. Ronaldo has not said a thing public, and neither of the club really. Behind the scenes, I had heard that United are pretty desperate to get rid of him at this point. And if I was Ten Hag, although he's saying he's an important player, I'll play him. If I was Ten Hag, politically, it seems just way too risky to have him at the club, because he will dominate all the headlines and the entire narrative. Every press conference will be about Ronaldo if he stays and his happiness. And it will be very, very hard for Ten Hag to play both his system and play anyone else, because of what happens not number one last season, public tantrums or convenient injuries. So I think that's what is happening, and everyone is basically waiting for someone to take him on. There won't be a fee involved. There's no United are going to be committed to £10 plus bonuses, minus the discount for not being in the Champions League next season in wages anyway. It's just getting him off the books, frees up space and frees up the politics. So we'll see. It's just, is there a Champions League club of any merit willing to take him? And what's the trade-off between you'll get 20 goals, you'll disrupt your system if you're a systems coach, and between that and the 100 million followers he has, obviously marketing boon, and whether that's worth it for the 1 or 2 years that you get out of him.
Yeah, I think the key sticking factor for United is that it's the history, right? I think if he had not had the history, if he was, let's say, if he was Zlatan and he had a year at United, I think there'd be a mutual termination of contracts without a problem. But I think if United did that to Ronaldo a year after bringing him back, regardless of the fact that you or I can look at it objectively and say that probably for the best, there's going to be millions of fans who'll be like, "Whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't just mutually." It'd be a little bit like George Best, like the sort of like the return's gone sour. What is the noises come from that? I mean, don't get me wrong, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we got off recording this podcast and United have put out a statement saying, "Oh, we've agreed to part ways." You know what I mean? It's that kind of situation. You really don't know what's going to come next with it. I think that the club have been very, very fair to him, very good to him in that they've kind of protected him from the mess of the mess that he and his agent have created, basically, in fanning the flames. Because let's turn it the other way around. If there was no there's no way of looking at this and saying there's movement on it, then they could have easily rubbished that, and they haven't. They've definitely not. There's definitely been movement. We know that he's trying. Mendes is definitely trying to get him.
Yeah, Ronaldo's had 3 weeks to post an Instagram story, which will be picked up absolutely everywhere, saying, no, I don't know what all this speculation is about.
And he does it.
I'll stay.
He does do that. He does post. He did do it recently. I don't know what it was about, but he posted something fake news in response to something. So he's definitely doing that. He's not above doing it. Yeah, he's obviously not for the long term at United. I know for many, the shorter term the better. I don't know how this fits. The best thing that you can say in this pre-season is that front three looks fluid and exciting, and you'd rather watch that than what we watched last season. So that's a big problem for Ronaldo already in the gamble that he's taken, because what's worse than not getting into the Champions League is not getting into a team that's in the Europa League. Do you know what I mean? That's even worse for his profile and ego, as good as striker as he is. I don't know. It's a really tricky one. All the things that, even though I'm romantic in terms of his return, I'm happy that I've seen him come back and score goals for United. I don't know. It seems like a sensible time to part ways, and
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Atletico will take it.
I think maybe the last week of the window, again, you're going to see you'll probably get a team desperate who'll be like, do you know what? And you wouldn't, for example, rule out Chelsea. Let's say in the last week of the window they go, oh, do you know what? I think we probably need another striker.
Yeah, we'll see. Tuchel seems to have ruled it out when owner/sporting director Todd Bowley was trying to do the deal. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. And things can move very quickly in the transfer market. And for United, it needs to get sorted soon, though, because we're 2 weeks away from the start of the season. And it's, we've got Brighton, Brentford, Liverpool, first 3 games. It's not the easiest of starts. I think, to the league. We want it to be positive, don't we? We want the momentum to carry on. And if this is all about Ronaldo, it's not good for Ten Hag, not good for the team. So one way or another, he either returns to Carrington, is training, and we hear the story that this was all nonsense and he's committed to United and will be staying at United, or he finds the worst possible situation is United return to Carrington. They flew home today, whatever time zone you're in, and they've got a game against Atletico Madrid. I think on Tuesday they go out to Norway, is it? On Monday or Tuesday, fly out to Norway. Got a game against Atletico Madrid in Norway, and then Rayo Vallecano at Old Trafford. And the 7th of August, the season starts. So, got to get sorted soon, otherwise it's going to hang over the first few weeks of the season. I will be surprised. Look, we started the show talking about public platform and making an idiot of yourself. We'll see whether I'm totally wrong, but I'd be surprised if we see Ronaldo at Carrington training anytime soon. Yeah. Hey. Could be made a fool of by that one. So, anyway, those two games, I mean, we're going to see Eriksen, we're going to see Martinez. I think they're both going out to Norway. That's looking forward to that. And it's 2 games to really, get that last 5% on the fitness and also bed the system in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think I know Ronaldo will dominate the headlines, but with the De Jong thing dragging on, obviously what we've got to see, if he doesn't get De Jong in, he's got to find an alternative because he's pinned so much on the importance of that player. So it'll be... I'm interested to see, because that's the value of coaching, right? If you don't have a player like that, you're going to have to develop a player to be like that as much as you can. And we'll see how good he can do it, how good, effective he can be. Or, how poor the players are.
Well, I'm pretty sure that neither Fred nor McTominay could be coached into that. Neither of them got a passing range to do that particular role, so he's going to have to find a different solution. It's like tactically different, or a different player. But anyway, I'm looking forward to the next 2 games, the last finishing touches before the season starts.
I'm not looking forward to it. I mean, I've had enough time off the heartbreak and the sheer catastrophe of last season, and it's probably that's making me feel more optimistic about it. It can't be worse than that. And we're at least entertained by what we've watched so far in pre-season. And if that can translate, and there is, I mean, a new season, a new manager, we've got a Youth Cup winning team, all those kind of things, and they've got new signings as well. You've got to be optimistic. I even hate the shirt, but it's growing on me. Even little things like that, you can tell I've got
there's something a little bit
delirium.
basic about it,
Yeah. So
they say that mothers just forget the horrors of childbirth, and that they wouldn't do it again if they didn't forget the horrors of childbirth. It's a bit like that. I mean, look, before everyone has a go at me on the internet, I'm not comparing watching Manchester United to giving birth, although it was pretty horrible.
Yeah.
So let's hope we all move forward. I'm feeling reasonably optimistic, because United haven't kicked a ball in anger yet, really. And it could all dissipate very quickly when Brighton score twice in the first 10 minutes of the first game of the season. Anyway, we'll come back to preview the season properly, I think, and talk about those opening games. I think that's it for today. Really good chatting to you again, Wayne.
You too. Take care.
Have a good rest of your summer. Keep on working on those books.
I will indeed. Look, do you know what? My closing thought is that if the first half performance against Brighton is good, he's already done better than Rangnick. So, reasons to be optimistic. Very much so.
Reasons to be optimistic. All right. Well, we'll catch you again soon. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye now.